Welcome to the Intimacy Unlocked podcast. I'm Serena Haines, your everything to do with sex coach, and I'm here to answer all of your juiciest sex questions. Welcome, everybody. I'm so excited for you to be here. I'm kind of nervous and I'm really excited. I've been on lots of stages. I've done lots of podcasts, but this one's all on me. So you know what? Let's have some fun with it. This is our first episode. We have so many questions to talk about today, and I cannot wait to get into it. I think today, the easiest way to transition into what this is going to be about is to talk about me. Hair flip. Just talk about everything that a sex coach does. Do you know how many myths and misconceptions there are about what I do? We're going to get into some of them, but it brings me joy just to answer those questions for most people, if I'm being completely honest. A lot of people misunderstand what a sex coach does. What I do, what happens when you come into the office, dun, 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 what's going to happen if your partner comes into the office without you, all of those things. So today I thought would be a great time for us to just dive right into that. We've got some questions that came in. My amazing producer, Sarah, is going to be here helping us out. Hey, Sarah.
Hey, Serena.
Can't wait. So we're going to get into some questions about what it is I do, the myths, the misconceptions, what I don't do, or what might cost you a fucking arm and a leg if you want it done. We can definitely leave that shit in. Okay. Anyways, so yeah, let's just get right into it, you guys. We have so many fun questions that came in. We had some come in from our anonymous form, which you can find in the show notes at the end of the podcast. We also had some come in from voicemail, which are super fun. So if you really want to send those in, get your voice out there, use an accent. This is your time to practice your best Australian accent. And send me your questions and confessions. God, do we love a confession. And I'll make a whole friggin' show out of one of your stories. I promise. So let's get into the questions. What are some myths and misconceptions about being a sex coach?
Let's get into it. So we actually have a voice one for the first one to kick it off, Serena. So here we go.
Hey, Serena. It is Sarah here. Longtime friend, first time caller. What I'm wondering is, with what you do, being a sex and intimacy coach, do you get paid to just sleep with people?
I wish. No. I do not wish. Okay. As I sit here just fiddling with my clitoris. No, I do not get paid to sleep with people. There are some beautiful people in the world and in my circle who are amazing sex workers who do that for a living. I get paid to help you become a really good lover so you can fuck other people, but you're not going to get to fuck me.
That's disappointing.
Sorry, not sorry.
How often do you get that question?
Oh my God, all the time. But let me tell you, it's not usually face to face. It's usually through email or Instagram DMs. And it's like, oh, hey, we all get those. So I put myself out there as a public face for those questions to come in. They actually don't even bother me. That's not an invitation for you to send them all to me, I swear. But at the same time, I feel them so often that it doesn't really affect me. But people do. They think that, they can pay me and I'll come in and I'll just either have sex with them or, give them a handy or something. And I'm like, no, baby, you are not paying me enough for that. Open a TFSA and come visit me in 10 years from now. That's how much it will cost you. Anyways.
I love that.
Yeah.
And this kind of goes with the next question that we got, which was, as a sex coach, are you just going to watch people have sex and critique them? Is that something you do?
That would be a super fun part of my job, but it is not, unfortunately. Okay, let me be completely transparent on this. As a certified sex coach, my certification states that, yeah, you know what? I can do that. I actually can watch people not have sex. I should clarify, but masturbation. So self-pleasure is something that, you get trained in learning how to help people find their pleasure potential, right? And it just a little stick a pin in this. It's actually a true certification. Some people don't think that I really went to school, but I went to school for 5 years to do all of this. There's a real big fusion of knowledge that happens. So to get that certification, you can watch people self-pleasure and give them feedback if that's the challenge that they've come into you with, right? So sometimes I have women who will come in, or people with clitorises will come in and say, I've never had an orgasm. It's my little clitoris here that I'm going to be fiddling with every episode probably. So anyway, and then I'll have like some people with penises come in and say, this, it's either premature or delayed ejaculation or whatever. And yes, in my certification, it says you can sit, watch them do it, help them kind of figure out where they're going wrong, so to speak. I do not. Okay. So my practice is primarily talk therapy based. We sit down, we have a lot of conversations. There's some videos. I'll send you home with exercises, things like that. But no, I'm not going to sit down and watch you have sex.
Not yet.
Not
anyway.
yet.
I have a follow-up question about the clitoris in your hand.
Oh.
Does she have a name?
She doesn't. We could put a poll out. Right now, she's pretty ratchet, if I'm being completely honest. If you guys can see my clit here, I have had this clit for a very long time. And, she's supposed to have like, mine is a she, is supposed to have, the little nub, the little flick the bean, but that fell off. And then she's also supposed to have 2 little legs that come out over her beautiful bulbs. But I'm caught in several photos, actually, flicking her around, flicking the bean, so to speak, and she's lost her legs. So I do have to get myself a new clit.
The way that I relate to that clitoris.
Just a little battered and bruised, but you know what? Still good to go.
Still good to go.
Still good to go.
Okay. Question number 3. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So in what you do, what boundaries are required or do you enforce to ensure respect and professionalism on both sides?
Right. So, I mean, the I don't want to call it boring, but the most laid out one is just an intake and release form that you get before I meet any client. That way you know exactly what you're getting into. You know exactly what sex coaching is because it's not therapy. Okay. So a lot of the time we think that sex coaching is therapy or therapy is sex coaching, but it isn't. I'm not a therapist. I'm really clear about that. I'm not here to, go deep into things and take things and pick them apart and figure out where you are deep in your psyche. I have a lot of resources that I can send you to for things like that. But for me, sex coaching is taking you where you are, who you are, and moving you forward to be the best lover that you can be for yourself or somebody else. That's pretty much what we do in sex coaching. So the boundaries that get laid out, are this is not therapy. You need to know that. There is no touching. So we need to talk about that as well. There's some very platonic, non-sexual touching happens, when it comes to a couple of little hand movements and things like that. But I don't practice a physical intimacy with anybody. When you come in as a couple, if I see you as a couple and then you want to see me individually, it's really important for me to know that the other half of your couple is okay with that, because the sensitive nature of what we do, it would be a real conflict of interest for me to have one partner come in and then the other one find out. And it's almost like a lie and cheating because it's boundaries. And we'll talk about boundaries in a relationship at another point, but I need to know that the other person is okay with that.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's an interesting, I hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah. And then when it comes to like solos and individuals, again, it's laid out so very clearly that there's no touching. I don't get to see videos of you. I've had people say, well, can I take a video of myself doing this and send it to you? And like I touched on a little while ago, in some practices, you'll be able to do that. But in my practice specifically, I don't. And it's really important for people to know that. I do work with women or people with pussies really a lot closer than I do with people with penises. And the only reason is because I don't love pussies, I love the dick. So I just think that for my relationship, it's really important for that boundary to be there in my relationship as well. I say that jokingly and in jest, but the idea is that yes, sometimes I do work a little bit closer with women, people who identify as women who have pussies. I will work with them physically sometimes. That's a big conversation that we can have, but I never work with people who identify as male with penises.
Can you touch on the orgasmic expansion for couples?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yes. So I'll take a deep breath because I love this practice. So I do have a practice for couples where you can come in. This is the most intimate, physically close that you'll ever get with your sex coach. It's been curated so that everybody is on board with what's happening. It's laid out very clearly. But this is a practice where I actually am in the room and I help you learn how to please your partner in a really slow way. It's the art of slow sex is what we practice. A little bit of tantra, a little bit of, slow sex practices. So in that room, the three of us are there. I don't touch your partner, no matter who you are at all. I sit with my little broken ratchet clitoris and my little pussy that I have here. And we'll talk about her in a little while too. And I help. And of course, wait, we can't leave anybody out, right?
Gang's all here.
Here we go. Gang's all here. A little threesome. But yeah, so I sit with you and I help you with props, learn how to touch your partner by, exploring the way that their bodies are responding, their breath, their heart rate, what pleasure seems to be happening. Maybe if there's no pleasure happening, and then we adapt it so that you can really get into a deeper sense of what manually pleasuring your partner can look like. Because I actually think that it's underrated in the sex world, the outer course, the slow sex, the manual play, even oral. Let's just shelf that for just like literally half a second because I love that too. But the manual play, if we skip over that manual play for people with clitorises, it's astounding how important that is. And for people who have penises, they've been thrown into this fast, secretive way of masturbating and touching themselves, that's what's expected from their partners as well. And then sex ends up feeling a little shallower than it could, right? There's nothing wrong with that. When I use the word shallow, I don't mean that in a negative way, but just like a little less deep, which is shallow.
That's right.
That's all. We're not going to get too deep in it.
How common is the, in terms of your services, the orgasmic expansion, is that a popular service that people are taking?
It's not, I'm not going to lie. It's not overly popular. It takes a lot to get to that point. So orgasmic expansion is not sex coaching. It is not come in. We have other issues. Because as a sex coach, I also do intimacy coaching, relationship coaching, right? So sometimes people come in and they're having challenges in their relationship. They don't know what's going on. They don't know how to touch their partner. Maybe there's intimacy challenges. Maybe there's communication challenges. We talk about all kinds of different things. Orgasmic expansion is for the couple that is pretty damn solid, right? Like they're pretty solid. Not everybody's 100%, right? But we're solid. We have a good foundation. We know exactly what we want, what we like. We communicate really well. We have really strong boundaries. In order to get to orgasmic expansion, we need to do a session together first. Both parties need to be on screen or in person. I need to know verbally that both parties are on board. I have had in the past, I had a partner schedule orgasmic expansion and everything was on the go. It was in the beginning of when I started doing things. Sometimes it's trial and error. And I didn't have a video call. I was like, oh, you know what? We'll do a phone call. It'll be okay. We'll do a consult call and make sure everybody's on board. And when it came down to it, I found out, luckily we weren't in the same room, but I found out that the partner that was on the phone call wasn't his actual partner. It was somebody that because then they were hoping that I would just show up and be like, surprise, we're going to do some pussy touching today. That's not how that works. So it's quite rigorous. You need to come in. I need to have these conversations. You both need to have a little one-on-one time with me. And then we go forward. The cost is it's not cheap. That's a really big service for me to provide. So, that is sometimes a deterrent for people, but it's a deterrent on purpose.
Exactly.
And I don't say that lightly, because we talk about everything being accessible to a lot of people, and it can be, we can work around it if you really want it, but I won't just have random people ask me to teach them how to masturbate their partners.
You got to vet people in some way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
That makes total sense. Okay, we have another voice question. Ready?
Oh, I love it.
Hey Serena, I have no idea what to expect for a one-on-one session. Can you walk me through your approach to a typical coaching session for couples or individuals?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I love hearing everybody's voices. Can you guys please send me in your voices? Holy cow, that's so much fun. And for the record, like I'm hoping not to hear these questions until we're actually recording, because I think that's kind of important too sometimes. So what would you expect? You're going to, if it's a virtual appointment, well, because I do both. Okay. So I do virtual and in-person appointments. Your virtual appointment is going to be you sitting on a Zoom link. You can be in your PJs. You have to wear clothes though. Okay. Please. And I am going to tell this really kind of cute story that sometimes I make people do fun things with their hands, like, oh, hey, can you just show me something? Or like, if you were to rub your nose right now, how? Because sometimes in my past, I've had to get people to make sure their hands are where I can see them.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Again.
Fair.
You have to. Anyways, I won't tell you all the secret ways that you can get around that, but people have tried. Anyway, so if you're on a Zoom call, please wear clothes and keep your hands where I can see them. And we just have a conversation. Okay. So it's just going to be me introducing myself to you. You're going to introduce yourself to me. We're going to have a really, chill conversation. Hey, what brought you here today? What's going on in your life? How can we, help you move forward in whatever challenge that is virtually? And then one-on-one in person, the only difference, of course, is that we're in person. But I want you to know that in person is usually in my office space. And it's a really chill atmosphere. Bring a coffee if you want, bring your water, whatever. Come on in and sit down. We're going to have, a room together. I have all of my props laid out. Some people like that. Some people don't. And I have asked, and some people have said, can you put them away? They make me feel a little uncomfortable. And that's okay, right? I mean, like, that's normal, especially if you're coming in not understanding what's going on. But some people really like to see these things out, and it gives them that sense of relaxation that no matter what they say, it's going to be accepted. I mean, if this bitch got dildos like in her hand and she's just like sitting here playing, I can definitely tell her about my anal fetish, like it's totally fine. You can talk about anything. So we sit down, we introduce ourselves to one another, we kind of ease in a little bit, and we just have a conversation. It really is just like this. What can I do for you? How can I help? I have to curate these sessions for every individual or couple that comes in. Nothing is cookie cutter, right? It's not A, B, C, and D. Somebody could come in looking for just some novel ways to spice up the bedroom tonight. And we spend an hour and we do that. Other people really need to talk about, we've never said the word sex in front of each other. The lights are always off. We need to talk about communication and things like that. So it can look a lot different, but the overall vibe is going to be pretty chill. I hope. I work really hard to curate that, and everything that I do and the way my voice comes off to you guys and talking to everybody. I want you to know that there's nothing off the table when you come in and have a conversation.
Now, question for you, Serena.
Yeah.
So if a couple came in with like multiple issues,
yeah,
do you do a initial, like, tell me all your issues and we'll pick one to dive into? Or do you kind of go one by one?
I just go one by one of whatever you want to do first. Now, there's been times where, for example, I'll have a couple come in and they want to open their relationship and they want to have conversations about having sex with other people. And then I'll ask them when the last time they were intimate with each other, and they say, well, we don't even talk about that, da-da-da. I'm going to step in and be like, well, we need to talk about you first, right? Because there's a reason for that. That foundation in a couple needs to be there before we go somewhere else. So there's going to be moments where I might have to kind of take over and be like, I think we should do this first. But for the most part, it's really whatever you want to talk about in the moment. The same as any therapy, really. If you went into like therapist, I know, my God, when I go into my therapist, she's like, God damn, girl, what are we going to talk about today? Last week we did this. I love her. She sits there, she goes, so last week we touched on, I'm like, no. We've moved from that. Now we need to talk about this. She's like, well, we should really close it. No, we're not closing anything off. I just need to get this shit out. So that's going to be the same thing for you.
So would you say like the clients, I don't want to say that they lead the session, but the clients can really just guide wherever they want to go with
yes.
your advice. Guide.
Yes. And I do think that's really important. I like to make sure that people understand that when you come in to me, I'm here for you, right? Like, it's not the other way around. You're not in here just to boost my ego and let me just talk all this nonsense all the time. I want to be there for you. you're in charge. This is a really intimate, really vulnerable place for you to be. And you don't have to sit there doing yes and no and maybes. Like there's no right or wrong. You get to lead the entire session. And if I see something that needs to be touched on, then we're going to get there. Like I'll interrupt or we'll talk about something and we'll have that laid out in place. Would you mind if I interrupted and said blah, blah, blah? But otherwise it really is for you.
And then if you had like one piece of just advice to offer people before they come in to see you, and I know that you're all about people showing up authentically, but like what would that be to get them in the mindset for your coaching?
It'd be hard to give just one piece of advice because as soon as you said that, I was like, oh, fuck before you come in. But that's not going to be the case for everybody, right? Like that's just where my head went. Let's just be raw and authentic here too. Sometimes the shit that comes out of my mouth isn't going to be like textbook. But no, the only advice that I would give you when you come in is to dive into that space that feels the most tension in your body, the most fearful, the thing that you really want to clam up about, and sit with that for a minute, because that's the thing that is really going to propel us forward when we're in session, right? So like if you're coming in to talk about, my erection issues and I haven't had an erection in a little while, and then this little voice inside your head goes, yeah, well, it was because that one time, remember that one time that they said something and then you got really sad about yourself, or like you don't feel good about your body right now. If that's the voice, then that's the hard part. The easy part is being like, my dick doesn't work. The hard part is because my heart is broken. So dive into that authenticity and that vulnerability and just see how much of that you can lay out on the table. Will it be for session? I don't know. But eventually we're going to get there because you will be asked some pretty hard questions. And when I say hard questions, I just mean really vulnerable questions.
We have another voice question. You ready?
Yes.
Hi, Serena. I would be curious to know what types of couple hire you for sex coaching?
All kinds of couples hire me for sex coaching. Honestly, I have, older couples, younger couples, long-term couples, brand new couples, people getting, married soon, maybe. They really like that, having this, going into marriage that way or whatever their relationship is. Solos and individuals coming in all ages, holy cow, like all ages and all sorts of challenges that are happening in their lives. Different knowledge that people want. I mean, there's just different ways of relating to sex with different people. So many, right? And so we have so many different orientations and different ways that we have grown up with sex and what we want from our sex. Anybody and everybody can come into a sex coaching session.
Perfect. As long as you're open-minded, right?
Be open-minded. Just be open-minded and a little bit vulnerable. When I say that word, people get really nervous and scared, but I don't mean you don't lay out all of your childhood issues, because I'm going to send you to a therapist if you do. Because like I said, right, this isn't therapy. We're going to listen. But if I see something super deep, then yeah, I'm going to resource you out. And I love doing that because I want to see people come back. I've resourced people out and then they come back for their sex coaching afterwards. And that's really great too. But yeah, be playful, open-minded. Just know that it's just, my God, you can talk about anything. And I love that. I love being able to have people come in and just tell me, I say quote, right? Air quotes. This is the weirdest thing I've ever said out loud. And I'm like, bitch, I heard worse than that earlier today. What do you mean? You can't make me blush. I love it.
I love it. It's just like, it's really a chance to just like let the mask off, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That must be so nice. And since you mentioned the therapy thing, can you just go over the differences between a sex therapist and a sex coach?
Right. So, I mean, the biggest one is that like a sex therapist is a therapist. Okay. They are, they either have a master's, they've done all of that regulated therapy education. That's it. And that's all. Now, most therapists can't do sex therapy unless they are specially trained. Okay. So a sex coach, it's interesting. A sex coach is kind of like your first response. And it's funny to me because I was a paramedic. So for me, I was first response to anything in a hospital. I pick them up, I bring them to the hospital, I drop them off, I go pick them up, I drop them off if there's something, and it was kind of that first response. And I kind of consider sex coaching first response. Come on in, let's have a chat. Let's see what's going on, because sometimes we don't have to dive so deep. Sometimes the answer just lies right beneath the surface, and we can do that. And then the deeper that we get, the more resources you will have with your therapy, right? There's going to be a lot. I'm not going to get into all the different like therapy ways of doing things, but cognitive behavioral therapy and, EFT and all those things. That's stuff for your therapist. Your sex coach is going to help you where you are right now. This is where I am. I'm a shit show. I'm a mess. I have anxiety. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I really want to fuck. Cool. Come on in and let's try to find a way that works for you in your world, in your mind, in your body right now, in this moment. And let's send you off into the world. Happy and juicy.
I love that. First responder for intimacy.
First responder for intimacy.
Intimacy first responder.
Yes.
And then you triage if it's out of your realm, you triage.
Exactly. Out of my scope, go somewhere else. And I have no problem with that. That is one of the people are like, why did you want to be a paramedic and not a doctor? I'm like, because the paramedic is that adrenaline rush. Like, you really love that. Now, I mean, we're kind of joking around. I don't want anybody to think that I'm just going to be like, and get out. No, it's not like that. We're going to talk about some really beautiful things and get really deep and vulnerable and all of that. But at the same time, the underlying reason of coming to a sex coach is to find more pleasure potential in your life, right? To find out, where can you find that pleasure? Is it in your body? Is it in your mind? Is it in your spirit, in your soul? We can do all of those things. You can go out into the world and just feel a little bit more confident in yourself with a little bit more knowledge.
I love that. The confidence side of things is huge.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned earlier that like it's any question, right? Is anything off limits, or are there any topics that come up where you don't explore that topic?
There are a couple of topics that are definitely off limits to me. Anything to do with the vulnerable sector is kind of off limits. Okay. So if we're talking, I don't even almost like, you don't even want to say it out loud, but anything, any vulnerable sector at all, or anything to do with animals.
Oh, fair.
You can tell me, but I will immediately be resourcing you. Right. And then you have a choice to do that. But to be honest, those are literally the only two things I won't talk about in my office or in my setting. Everything else is on board. You want to get pissed on in the middle of the street. You want to have somebody like take one on your chest. I don't care what it is. Ask all of the questions. But if it has to do with the vulnerable sector or bestiality, we're not going to have a chat right now, today. We will have a chat, but you'll get resourced out very quickly.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's super, super fair. Okay. Moving on.
Moving right along.
Okay. So how might someone know? We talked a bit about like your like the types of couples who come see you. If someone's considering it, how can they really know if the one-on-one coaching is the route to go with you?
Right. Well, I mean, you can come in for a consult call and we'll have those conversations, right? So consult call is a quick 10-minute. For the record, it usually ends up being about a half an hour because I just chat. And you tell me what's going on, and then I sit and let you know if I can help you. It's kind of a back and forth vetting, if I'm being honest. I feel really strongly about people's connection with me, right? I need to connect with you. I need to know I can help you. Like, is it in my scope? Is it in my, is it in my realm of practice? Cool. But if you don't know me and you can't have those conversations with me, if you get off the phone with me and you're like, that vibe really wasn't cool. I don't really want to work with them one-on-one. That's important for you to know going into that. I don't want you to come in and sit in the office. And I mean, you can. People have done that as well without a consult call. No big deal. But a consult call is probably the easiest way for you to get to know what I do, who I am, if we're going to be a good fit, and if that's going to work for you.
Great point.
Yeah.
So just do that consult call, and then they can go from there.
Like the one-on-one is usually for, so like I have like single sessions are usually for the people who are like, how do I give a good blowjob? How do I lick her clit this way? You know, they really like me when I finger them, but I really like it when they finger me, you know, like those kind of things. Like, how can we move into it? And then we can have packages of different times where we actually have a plan. We put a plan in place to move you closer toward your potential for pleasure. So those would be things that we would talk about in the consult call as well.
So if cost is a barrier for someone, if they can't afford the one-on-one sessions, what are the other ways that they could maybe work with you, get other than listen to this podcast, obviously, but get the knowledge, or are there other services that might be more cost effective than the one-on-ones?
Yeah, I try so hard to just have a range of ways to work with people. I mean, we can go from blogs on my website, serenahaines.com, to, you know, workshops, to live shows, to speaking appearances. Okay. So like down here, we can do obviously the podcast, like come on and listen. Every month, we're going to talk about something a little bit different. We need you. So whatever you want to hear is what we're going to talk about. And then moving forward through that, I do have payment plans. I do have to talk about that. And I do feel terrible. Like sex coaching is not covered under any sort of like insurance or anything like that yet. We're just not considered there yet. So I don't love that, but cost is never a barrier. Come to me and tell me what you need and tell me what you want, and we will work a way around that. I'll either give you the resources that you need to go and learn it on your own, or we'll figure out a way to get you in the office and have conversations together.
I love that. So you do a lot of other things too, Serena.
Oh.
Can you talk a bit about your speaking events and your fun more than the tip? Like, tell me a bit about that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I do. I love talking. So I love doing these things. So I have my one-on-one practice, but then I also do like stage shows, and they're so fun. So, you know, Sarah and I get together sometimes and we put off more than the tip. It's this amazing, like comedian based comedy show / fucking Sex with Sue / giveaway / come and have a drink. Those, I'm not going to lie, my speaking appearances and my show appearances are some of the most fun things that I do ever. Like, I can reach such a wide audience. There's so many different people in the audience. They ask questions too, right? Like, this is really interactive when we have these shows that happen. So you get to ask all of your questions. They're on the spot. Like, if there's something there's nothing that I love more, I should say, than like stump the sex coach. Can you stump the sex coach? Because look, let me just throw it out there. I don't know everything about everything. The world of sex changes like that in an instant. One day I know exactly what something means, and then the next day I can't even give you an example of what Urban Dictionary can come out with definitions of different sex positions. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, you have to inform me as well. So having these conversations is so fun for people. So I really do love those. Those are, I think, other than the podcast, the most fun and exhilarating time I have is on stage.
And a cost affordable way for someone to come out and get their questions answered.
100%, 100%. And it's a night out with your either partner or friends. And remember, sex begets sex. So the more you talk about it, the more you listen to it, the more you're going to want to have it either with yourself or with a partner. Well, that's a wrap on today's episode. Thank you so much for listening to Intimacy Unlocked podcast. That's our first episode, and I couldn't be happier to be here with you guys today. Thank you to Sarah for, all of her magic behind the scenes. Remember, this podcast is fueled by your questions, your confessions, anything. Oh God, your confessions, anything that you want to put out, we want to talk about. So send them in. We've got our anonymous form and we've got our voicemail. Again, it can be all anonymous. All of those links will be posted in the description of the episode. So click on those links and join us. And you can always find more at serenahaines.com or on Instagram at Serena_Haines. Thank you for listening to the Intimacy Unlocked podcast, where I'm unlocking your pleasure one question at a time. The key is already in your hands. Are you ready to turn it? And okay, you know what? I'm not going to lie. There have been times
Whoa.
where there's a fire alarm.
No,
it's an alarm.
Why can't you?
Oh,
Why can't I turn these off? They're so
Evacuation
loud.
alert. Bedford Institute, Dartmouth. Due to a chemical spill.
Jesus.
What?